Okay, I've been wanting to do this for a while. I hope the visual is okay. I did a test drive, but I only did a 5-second test drive, and it looks okay. So I'm hoping this goes well, and please stick with me. I've been planning this, I've been wanting to do this for weeks, but I had to wait until the tree showed up. So I just wanted to show you the tree. And it's Christmas, and I'm reading a Christmas story. So I wanted to be able to show you the tree and my little light here. Um, I've been wanting to do this for a while. Welcome to the D. Louise book series. I'm Christina Kristina. This is where we read books and talk about books. No special effects going on here. No D music. None of that fancy schmancy stuff. And tonight I'm doing a little extra something special. I've been wanting to do this for me. I hope it works out. Fingers crossed. I did this a while ago. I didn't go into it. We did, when I very, very first started the If Thens, I started with uh, Julia Quinn's Bridgerton's versus Johanna Lindsey's Mallory's. Tonight I am doing Johanna Lindsey's Mallory's alone. I love these books. I love these series. I love these characters. And we're going to read some present in a little bit because it's my favorite. It's the one, and I've looked for other authors when I was doing the Christmas theme specials. I was specifically looking for authors that had a series and where they had a Christmas or a Thanksgiving or a holiday get together. I didn't find too many, so you will have to check out. I did 4 Christmas if-thens. If Then Cozy Christmas, If Then Contemporary Romance Christmas, Christmas, I think it was an ebook, no, and Vampires Do Christmas. Those are the 4. So I want to do this one because it's just, the series is very special to me, and I hope you will think it's special to you also. So I've been really wanting to do this. So I've got my little light here. Um, I picked up the wrong one. Uh, Already I'm on the wrong foot. Love Only Once is book 1, and you will see this book again in January. Um, I said to myself, I have this idea for an if then, and you will have to stay tuned for January's if thens. And I said to myself, I probably own most of the books that I'm going to use, and I do. I went through quite a few of them, and I do. But there's quite a few more that I don't realize I own, and I need to go through them all. It could take 20 years to go through all these books. I own almost 4,000 books. But because I was trying to do it by internet searches and Goodreads searches, and it wasn't working. But I know of like 5 off the top of my head. So I may limit it to 10 or 15 books. I was kind of getting carried away with 20 there, but we'll see. So Say You Love Only Once. I may have to turn the lights on in a minute. This is a case of mistaken identity. Regina Ashton wants to meet Nicholas Eden, and he mistakenly believes she is his courtesan because she comes veiled to his place, and the courtesan wants him to take her to this elusive party, and he decides that he's going to go to the elusive party without her. And things, she ends up at the place and tied up to his bed, and he gets to the party and he's like, she's at the party. If she's at the party, who do I got tied up to my bed? I love this. I love the Mallorys. And the conclusion of this one is the beginning of the next one. All right, hold on a second. Okay, so obviously that wasn't working. So that's Love Only Once is the first book. Then Tender Rebel is book 2. Rosalind Chadwick needs the safety of marriage to protect her from an unscrupulous cousin and from the army of Fortune 100 scoundrels who coveted her wealth and beauty. Anthony Mallory is everything she's been warned against. She meets him at a party, and she decides that he's the one. And, he has to be talked into this bachelor stuff. But at the end of this book, Anthony and James are in one of the taverns, and James gets accosted, sort of, kind of, by a boy. When he really thinks about it, it was a girl, and that'll lead to book 3. But we have Anthony and James and the elders. Wait a second. Okay. So Jason is the oldest. We'll get to his book. And then Edward, he's already married in the series. And then Anthony is our first book. And no, Anthony's the second. Regina is the first book. Let me get my head back on. Regina is the youngest. She's actually she's the daughter, she's their niece. She's the daughter of their sister that died. There's a sister that died. And so we have Anthony in Tender Rebel. Edward already has, he already has a wife. So, and he's one of the straight-laced ones of the group. And then we have book 3. It's my favorite. Well, actually second to the present. This is book 3, and this is James Mallory. And the tavern boy that he meets in the end of this book is, he goes on his ship. He is a pirate, sort of, kind of. And there's a price on his head, sort of, kind of. And she, Georgina, and James will call her George. Just, he likes calling her George, and the whole family will call her George. Her family of 5 brothers will have an issue with the fact that he calls her George. And the fact that she stows away on his ship all the way to America, and she spends all that time with him in his cabin alone with intimate relations, and then he gets to her side of town, and her brothers, it's a calamity after another. And because James won't admit he wants to marry George. He's in love with George by this point in the book when they get to America. But because he can't be seen, or he's got this, it's explained in the book, he's got this thing. So he lets, or he pretends to let, Georgina's brothers beat the F out of him so he will marry her. And when his brothers find out, they know right off the bat, because they know James, that because he couldn't, he said he would never marry, but he wants to marry her, so he has to make it look like he was coerced when he really did want to marry her. And then, we have Amy Mallory. And she's the youngest sister. And she wants to go. She has fallen in love with one of Georgina's brothers. And Georgina's brother had a very, very bad experience. And he's divorced now. And there is no way in double hockey sticks that he's going to get married again. And Amy really works hard to get him to marry her. So, this takes place in 1817. This takes place in 1818. This also takes place in 1818 in the same few months. And 1819 is this one. Then we come to the present. And we'll come back to this in a minute, because this is what we're going to be reading. Oh, the present is book 6. I miscounted. So, Say You Love Me. Now, this one is also a screw up. Kelsey Langdon agrees to be Derek Mallory's mistress. She is penniless, and she gave herself to this madam type person, and she sold herself to Derek, and he puts her up in this place, and he tells the servant at his dad's place, please deliver food, blah, 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 to this thing. And the servant gets fired not 10 seconds later. So nobody goes to see Kelsey at the cabin where she is. No one knows she's there. And she has to earn a living to make, because she doesn't know where Derek went. And she gets sick and ill and the whole 9 yards. And your heart wrenches for her during this book. And you want to just strangle Derek for being an idiot and not checking on her sooner. So she goes through a tremendous thing in that book. So it's Derek is friend. No, he's Jason's kid. He's Jason's only kid. That's who he is. So then you have The Loving Scoundrel. And a lot of people says that Jeremy is Anthony's kid because he's Anthony's clone. He's not Anthony's kid. He's James's kid. And Rosalind has a chuckle with that. She tries to get Anthony to admit almost the whole book that Jeremy is his kid. And he keeps telling her, no, it's James's kid. It's not my kid. So this is Jeremy's book. And so when Danny, a young woman who grew up on the streets of London with no memory of her real family, is banished from her gang because she helped handsome rakeshell Jeremy Mallory steal back the jewels his friend lost in a card game, Danny demands that Jeremy give her a job. She is to become a respectable in order to fulfill her dream of marrying and starting a family. And Jeremy hires Danny as an upstairs maid, although he wants her for his mistress. But these books happen after the present, so I'm just going to go through them a little quickly because I want to get to the present. Book 8. Captive of My Desires. And devastated by her mother's death, 18-year-old Gabrielle Brooks sets sail from England to a Caribbean island in search of her estranged father. But instead of encountering a distinguished merchant ship, she discovers her father has become a pirate. After spending 3 wonderful years sailing and treasure hunting with him, Gabrielle is dismayed when her father decides she must return to London to find a proper husband. His old friend James Mallory will sponsor her. And of course, we have another Anderson getting hitched, Georgina's brothers. And No Choice But Seduction is book 9. After her mother died, vivacious Katie Taylor fled her dull Connecticut town, hoping to meet her relatives in England and find adventure and romance on a grand tour of Europe. She had no idea that her life-changing travels would have both in spades as well as danger and intrigue when she catches the eye of ship owner Boyd Anderson, another one of Georgina's brothers. And um, That Perfect Someone is book 10. Um, Richard Allen fled England and his controlling father. Determined to live his own life, he took to the sea and settled in the Caribbean, joining a band of treasure hunting pirates and adopting the persona of a carefree, seductive Frenchman named Jean Paul to guard the secrets of his past. When he slips back into England to carry out an urgent task, Richard becomes infatuated with a married woman, Georgina Mallory. And there's a whole thing there. And the last 2 books, Stormy Persuasion and Beautiful Tempest, are James's kids. Actually, Anthony's girl and James's girl. The two girls. Uh, Judith and Jacqueline are the 2 girls, and this is the books to finish the series. So now I want to go back to book 6, The Present. You don't find many series books where, even if it's, although, Linda Dale Miller is the only other one, I think Mary Bailow may have done it, and Lisa Cal Rippus does A Christmas, The Wallflowers, and I talked about that, in the Regency Christmases the other day. But I love this book. You catch up on all your family members. I was just reading, and you'll see it later in the month, a Fiona Buckley book, and I hated it because I started at book 23, and I'm like, oh, shoot, I should have started at book 1. It had a whole bunch of family catch-up in the beginning, and I normally absolutely love family catch-up in the that would be fine, but I didn't know anybody. I didn't know what the heck was going on. So that's where you have to start with book 1 with a series. And that's why all the series I do for the videos, I always start with book 1. And we are almost finished now with Patricia Briggs, Mercy Thompson. And we are currently doing Catherine Coulter's Sherlock and Savick book series. And she stops at 27. I wish she would have gone straight to 30, but she decided to call it quits at 27. And then I'm looking for other series to start the new year, so I'll have to do that. What else do I own in this house? Maybe we'll do Cheryl and Kenyon. Although that takes a lot of tissues, her series. She loves to torture her guys. So, The Present. Oh, and there's your Mallory family tree. The Mallory clan always spent the Christmas holidays at Haverston, the ancestral estate in the county where the oldest among them had been born and raised. Jason Mallory, the third Marquis of Haverston and the oldest of 4 brothers, was the only family member who was still a permanent resident. The head of the family since he was only 16, Jason has raised his brothers, 2 of whom have utterly scandalous in their pursuits and a younger sister. At present, the various Mallorys and offsprings were quite numerous and difficult to place, sometimes even for Jason himself, so it was a very large brood that gathered at Haverston these days for the Christmas season. Jason's only son and heir, Derek, was the first to arrive more than a week before Christmas, With him came his blonde wife Kelsey and Jason's first two blonde and green-eyed children. Anthony, his youngest brother, was the next to arrive, only a few days after Derek. Tony, as most of the family called him, admitted to Jason that he deserted London early after hearing that his brother James had a bone to pick with him. Annoying James was one thing, and something Anthony often strived to do, but when James was out for blood, well, Tony considered that a different matter entirely. And it's so cute. It's so cute. I love this family, and I would love if somebody did justice to this family like they did to the Bridgertons. And another family that deserves a series of their own is Stephanie Lawrence, The Sinsters. There are almost 50 books in that. She's still writing it. And I did a whole thing on the Sinsters. The Sinsters go into the Bastion Club, to the Cobra, to the Buccaneer series. It's a huge series. And all the characters, if you're a lead character in a book, in one book, then you're a secondary character in the next book. And you get to continue with the characters the whole way through. And I just lost my spot. So, Anthony and James were his youngest brothers, yet only a year apart in age themselves. They were both skilled boxers. They call it pugilists, but I can't say pugilists, so we're going to say boxers. At Gentleman Jim's. They all box at Gentleman Jim's. Anthony could hold his own in the best of them, yet James was heftier and his fists were frequently likened to solid bricks. With Anthony came his wife Rosalind and their two daughters. Judith, the oldest at 6, had taken after both her parents, having her mother's glorious red gold hair and her father's cobalt blue eyes. But his younger daughter, Jamie, was going to break some hearts as well. But even with all his guests, Jason was the first one to notice the present that appeared in the family parlor. All nice and wrapped up in gold, banded with a red velvet ribbon. Poking a finger at it showed that the protrusion could move, yet not very much, as he found when he tilted the present sideways and it didn't change position. A bit early to be passing out Christmas gifts, ain't it? Anthony says. The Christmas tree hasn't even been brought in yet. That was my thought as well, since I didn't put it here, Jason replied. No? Then who put it there? I have no idea. Who's it for? I don't know. I'd like to know myself. No card? There's no card with it either. No, I just found it here on this pedestal. Anthony picked up the present as well to poke at it. Someone sure dressed it up fancy. I'll wager it will fascinate the children, at least until we find out what it is. They were all looking toward Jason he merely shrugged. Devil if I know who laid it to rest there. Alright, let me back up here. Those having arrived so far were gathered in the parlor that night when Amy walked in holding one of her twins. Don't ask why we're late. You wouldn't believe it. First, the wheel on the coach fell off. Then, not a mile down the road, one of the horses lost not one but 2 of its shoes. After we finally got all taken care of and were almost here, the bloody axle broke. I thought surely Warren was going to kill that poor coach by then. He certainly kicked it enough. If I didn't wager. And Amy when Amy makes a bet, she always wins. Always. So you don't bet Amy, because if you bet against Amy, Amy always wins in this series. If I didn't think to wager him that we would arrive here today, I really don't think we would have. But I never lose a wager. So, by the way, Uncle Jason, what's an unmarked grave doing in that lovely clearing east of here? The one close to the road that runs through your property. We ended up walking through it to get here, since it was the shorter route by that point to just head across the clearing. No one said a word at first, still and bemused after that long dissertation. But then Derek said, remember that grave myself now that you mention it, Cousin Reggie? I came across it when we were young gaddings across the state. Although he's meant to ask you about it, Father, just never got around to it. They were all looking toward Jason by then, but he merely shrugged his broad shoulders. Devil if I know who laid to rest there. That grave has been there since I was born. Asked my father about it once, as I recall, but he put off answering. Hemmed and hawed so much, actually, that I figured he just didn't know, so I didn't ask again. Think we've all come across that grave at one time or another, at least those of us who were raised here. Strange place for a grave, and a well-tended one at that, when there are two cemeteries nearby, not to mention the ancestral cemetery right here on the property. Judith, who'd been standing next to the pedestal staring at the mysterious present, came over to her cousin Amy and held up her arms to take the 2-year-old twin from her. Judy was tall for her age and very good with toddlers. Amy was surprised that she got no greeting and said, "Where's my hug, Puss?" Those exquisite features just stared at her mullishly. Amy raised a brow toward the girl's father. "She's pouting 'cause Jack ain't here yet." Jack was James and Georgina's oldest daughter. Everyone knew that Jack and Judy, who were only months apart in age, were inseparable. And they grow up to these books. So, uh, um, Amy, Uncle James hasn't arrived yet. Amy surmised against Anthony's last response. "Oh, are you two fighting again?" "Me? Fighting? But, wouldn't think of it. But someone bloody well ought to tell him this is the season for good cheer." Derek chuckled at his uncle's sour expression. "Heard a rumor Uncle James was out for your hide. What'd you do?" "I don't know what I did. Ain't seen James for a good week, not since I dropped off Jack after the outing I took the girls on." "Well, James would have let me know if he wasn't coming," Jason pointed out. "So when he gets here, kindly take any altercations outside. Molly seriously objects to blood staining the carpets." Now, everybody knows, but Jason in his brain. Everybody knows. Jason and Molly is the head housekeeper. She has been Jason's mistress for up 10 years. But Jason is trying to keep it from his family, but the entire family knows. And they just pretend they don't. No one would think it strange that he called Haverston's housekeeper by her first name. After all, Molly Fletcher had held that position for more than 20 years. That she was also Jason's very long-time mistress and Derek's mother was not something that everyone in the family was aware of. In fact, only a couple of the members had ever learned or guessed the truth. Jason had only told Derek, his son, about this time 6 years ago. And around that Christmas, Jason, who deplored all scandals attached to the family, was willing to create one in giving his wife Frances the divorce she wanted, just to keep her from revealing what she knew about Molly. But since then, Molly had remained the housekeeper. Jason had tried ever since Derek found out the truth to get her to marry him, but she was still refusing, because Molly's got it in her head that she's a servant, and she should not go from servant to a lady of the house. She's got it in her brains. There was an little idiosyncrasy our twins have developed. Strangest behavior. When Stuart wants Warren's attention, I might as well be a stranger to him. He ignores me so thoroughly and vice versa. When he wants my attention, Warren can't do a thing with him, and Glory does exactly the same thing. At least they do it at the same time, Warren said. "I've been meaning to ask Uncle James and Aunt George if they're having the same problem with theirs. Has he gotten used to them yet?" Jason asked Anthony, since Anthony, being closest to James, saw him the most often, and Jason didn't get to London often. "Of course he has," Anthony said assuredly. Yet they all still remembered his reaction when Amy had born twins. He'd asked his wife Georgina, who was Warren's sister, where they came from. Good God, George, you could have warned me that twins run in your family every other generation. We are not having any. Do you hear? Georgina had been pregnant again herself at the time and had just given birth to just that, twin boys. Um, so it was Molly who put the present out, but the family doesn't know that yet. Um, uh, Molly was beginning to suspect that he was doing it on purpose, that he was hoping they'd be found out, not that it would change her mind about anything. He was trying to sneak little kisses in public. She was going to have to assure him of that if he didn't return to his usual show of indifference when the others were around. They had always been so careful, never giving away by look or word or deed that they were together. But they know. Um, Her lack of social status was why she could convince Jason that Derek should never know either, that she was his mother, though he hadn't wanted to keep that from his son. Not that Jason had considered marrying her back then, but he'd been young, and like anyone of his class, adhered to the fact that the Lord did not marry his mistress. He had instead married an earl's daughter just to give Derek and his niece Reggie a mother figure. And Frances was absolutely disastrous. She was a train wreck. Um, so Molly just managed to refrain from rolling her eyes. She knew Jason's family as well as she did, since he shared everything with her, including all the family secrets, foibles, and scandals. So she wasn't the least bit surprised to hear Anthony say to Nicholas as he took the seat across from him, "Good of you to show up, dear boy. My teeth were getting a tad dull." "Old age starting to set in, is it?" Nick shot back. Molly noticed that nudge Anthony's wife gave him before she said, "Remember, it's Christmas. Be nice for a change." Up went Anthony's black brow. "For a change, I'm always nice. There's just nice, and then there's nice. The latter gets reserved for brothers, like Eden is all." Molly sighed. As fond as she was of all Jason's family, she had a soft spot for Nicholas Eden because he had befriended her son in the school days. When Derek had had to deal with his public illegitimacy, he and Derek had been close friends ever since, and typically Derek jumped in now to take Anthony's attention off Nick. "Reggie, you remember that grave we found in the East Clearing all those years ago? As I recall, you were going to ask one of the gardeners about it. Did you ever get around to doing that?" Oh no, she forgot. She totally, absolutely forgot. So they decide that they're gonna go talk to the gardener. He's like 100 and something years old. Um, so unless one of the gardeners was specifically asked to tend it, Anthony pointed out. Old John Marcus was ancient when I still lived here, and he'd worked at Haverston for as long as anyone could remember. If anyone might know about that grave, it would be him. So, he is living with his daughter over in Haverstown, and they're gonna go over and talk to him. And the gravestone marker says, "She rests." So they're gonna go over and talk to him. They talk to John, and he says, "I tended that grave for nigh on 68 years. "Goodness," Reggie claimed, "that's long even before you were born, Uncle Jason." "Aye, since I was a lad of 13. Turned the task over to my nephew when I retired 15 years ago. Wouldn't trust anyone else to do it proper. He ain't been slacking, has he?" "No, he hasn't. But we want to know whose grave it is." "Well, now, I don't rightly know," he says. The surprised silence that followed that answer was full of disappointment. It was Derek who finally said, "Then why did you keep care of it all these years?" "Because she asked me to." Why, your grandmother, Lord Jason. Wasn't anything I could have done for that kind lady. Everyone at Haverston felt that way. She was well loved. Your grandma was not like your grandpa, or at least not as he regarded when he was young." "I beg your pardon?" No disrespect, my lord, but the first Marquis, he was a stiff one, though no different from other aristocrats given his day. He was given Haverston by the crown, but he had little care for it or its people. He preferred London, and came only once a year for accounting by his estate agent, who was an arrogant coxcomb that ruled Haverston like a tyrant when the Marquis wasn't there. A rather harsh statement against a man who can't defend himself. Merely the truth, he says, as I saw it. But that was before the Marquise met and married Lady Anna. She changed him, she did. Taught him to appreciate the little things in life. A shame about the rumors. What rumors? About her being a gypsy. Ah, that one. Just because she looked and sounded foreign, and there happened to have been gypsies in the area just before her appearance. Some folks got that silly notion, but the Marquis, he put a stop to that rumor when he married her. After all, a lord like him would never marry so far beneath him. Jason intercepted her son's grin just before Derek remarked, "Depends on the lord." Jason gave him a quelling look. The rest of the family didn't need to know yet. He'd hoped to get Molly to marry him first. Back then it just wasn't done, Lord Derek. Today maybe, but 80 some years ago, a scandal like that would ruin a man. Well, rumor was all it ever was, Jason pointed out, since it's never been proven one way or the other. The rumor wasn't completely put to rest, though, or it still wouldn't be known. But as you say, it hardly matters in this day and age where Anna Mallory was a gypsy or of Spanish descent, as most assume. Only she could answer that, but my grandparents died before I was born. I'm sorry I never knew them. So then they, James arrives. Bloody hell it is. Molly wished him a Merry Christmas. Good to see you, Molly. Where's that worthless brother of mine? Which brother would that be? When she knew very well he would never refer to Edward or Jason, the elders in that matter. He would only refer to Anthony in that way. But then Jason shared everything with her about his family, so she knew them as well as he did. The infant, he says. She winced at his tone, though, as well as his expression, which reverted to deadly menace at the mention of infant. Big, blond, and handsome James Mallory was, just like his elder brother, and rarely did anyone actually see him looking angry. When James was annoyed with someone, he usually just very calmly ripped the person to shreds with his devilish wit and by inscrutable expression. The victim had absolutely no warning. Such pointed barbs would be headed his way, or maybe a punch or two, depending on who it was. Oh dear, Molly says. So, the infants hiding behind infants, how appropriate, James sneered. Isn't it? Anthony grinned, and he kissed the top of his daughter's head. He's holding his kid. Put down my niece. Wouldn't think of it, old man. At least not until I find out why you want to murder me. Anthony's wife, Rosalind, bent over one of the twins, didn't turn about to say, "Excuse me, there'll be no murdering in front of the children." The smirk that elicited from Anthony had James raising a golden brow at him. That, of course, Anthony gave ample warning that he wouldn't like what was coming, knowing his brother. Ask yourself what would happen when Jack out of the blue mutters, "Bloody everlasting double hockey sticks," within her mother's hearing. Then ask yourself what would happen when George asked her daughter where she heard such a phrase. Then imagine what would happen when Jack, unaware that she had just shocked her mother, pipes up that Uncle Tony took Judy and her to Kingston's Hall. And that's the gentleman Jack's. That's the fighting ring. And she finds out about the wager. And then picture George not believing when I tell her that I didn't know that you took the kids there. So guess who she's blaming? And see, the problem is that George used it as an excuse. It's only an excuse to avoid James. The real reason she's avoiding James is that we'll see if we get to that, but I know why. So then he later on Jason asks Molly to marry him again. And they do the present, and Molly confesses that she put it there. And they open it on Christmas Day, and the whole family is going to get involved in the situation. And that's going to be the other half of the story, and that you can read for yourself. But here's the letter that comes with the present. To our children and their children and so forth. This record we leave to you may be a surprise or it may not. It's not something we talk of other than in private, nor have we ever told our son, and we are not assured of having more children that we may or may not speak of it. Know that it was not an easy task getting my husband to agree to add his thoughts to this record, because he feels he does not express himself well with the written word. In the end, I had to promise him that I would not read his portion, so he would be free to include feelings and perspectives that I had not agree with or might tease him about. He made me the same promise. Thus, when we finished this record, we did securely lock it and throw away the key. So we leave this written record to you to be read at your leisure and with your own imagination, lending it to life. Though when you do read it, it will most likely be when we are no longer with you to be questioned about our motives and less than honest dealings with the people who would do us harm. I give you fair warning, if you have been led to believe that we are individuals that could do no wrong, then read no further. We are human after all, with all the faults and passions and mistakes that are human are known for. Judge us not, but perhaps learn from our mistakes. Anastasia Mallory. Anastasia. Anastasia, Anthony was saying. Can't say I've ever heard my grandmother called that before. It's not exactly an English name, whereas Anne is. An obvious effort to conceal the truth, if you ask me. But what truth? Anastasia could be a Spanish name, or not. No need to speculate in all of this. We'll be reading the truth for ourselves, so who gets to read it first? Amy does, of course, Derek says. It might have shown up before she made that bet with Jeremy, but it's still related as far as I'm concerned. Though I'd like to know who found it and wrapped it up for a Christmas gift rather than just give it to Father. And Molly will confess to that later. And the reason, if you are still here, the real reason that George is mad at James is because he said he didn't want any more twins, and she is pregnant again with twins, and that's why. But you also have to read the rest of the story, read the book. They are going to read the book, and they are going to read about how Anastasia and the first Marquise met. And their whole story is in here. And I love this Christmas book. You get to catch up with family, and you get the first story. And you'll have to, I hope you will enjoy this as much as I did. I love this series to death. I've been waiting months to do this because I really wanted to do it with the tree. And where's my thing? Oh, I gotta take this off. If you take this off. If you are a bed reader, it works best with hardcovers, but you can attach it to a pillow. Just attach it like that, and you can read. But it does work the best with hardcovers. It'll attach, and then you just turn it on and read. You can read in bed like that. I love this thing. Or you can attach it to your pillows behind you like I had it. I had, see? And then you can just attach it. So, um, I have no idea where I got it. I think I got it off Amazon. I'm not sure. I don't remember. It was years and years ago. So if you could please hit the like and subscribe, and I hope that you enjoyed the present as much as I did, and let me know in the comments if you read the book, if you've read my Mallory's. I love my Mallory's. I love my Mallory's. And we got to do the Sinsters at some point. I did them for If Then, though. I did do the Sinsters previously, but you've got your core Sinsters, and then you have the Bastion Club and the Cobra thing and the Buccaneer thing, and all the backup characters. If they're a main character in the beginning, they become backup characters in future books. If they're a backup character, then they become a main character. It's such an amazing series. I wish someone would do it. So if you could please hit the like and subscribe, I'd appreciate it. This video is going to take up to 20 hours to upload. Uh, Hands to God, my upload speed is 12. So let's see what happens there. And I hope you have a Merry Christmas. Have a good one. And a Happy New Year. And a Happy Hanukkah, too. And a Kwanzaa, I think is the other one. Have a good one.